What's a podcast actually worth listening to? Well, there's your problem, a podcast about engineering disasters. With slides. I listen to one or two comedy podcasts, but none of them make me laugh as hard or as often as two civil engineers from Philly, proud sons of Philly, and a posh British woman discussing engineering and societal disasters. Edit. Only Roz is a civil engineer, Liam is a finance major because he's a good boy. Hardcore history. The World War I series may be one of the best podcast series I've ever listened to. Completely rocked my world and made me realize I knew nothing about that war. The World War I is one of the greatest pieces of media of all time. All of HH is amazing, but the blueprint to Armageddon is transcendent. Hard agree. I've re-listened to it multiple times and have probably ruined several friendships by screaming about Verdun or Passchendaele in dinner party settings. Don's magnum opus for sure. History of Rome. After the first few episodes where sound produciton isn't great, it's just like 200 episodes of incredible story of the rise and fall of the entire Roman Empire. The dude knows his shit. Actively will call out his own mistakes during the following episodes when he is wrong, which isn't often. He tells it in wee better than any textbook. He almost never goes off the rails and talks about irrelevant material. And when he does, it's about baseball for like 4 seconds. He enjoys the topic and you can tell. Revolutions, also by Mike Duncan, is excellent as well. I would listen to Mike Duncan read a grocery bill. Behind the Bastards is fantastic, but will question humanity. You know what won't make you question humanity? The tasty feeling of some cool ranch Doritos on in your mouth. Doritos probably never directly caused a genocide. But you know who almost definitely has directly caused a genocide? The sponsors of today's show, Raytheon. Raytheon, buy yourself a knife missile. Products. Services. This is kind of new, but check out If Books Could Kill. Two guys discuss and analyze best-selling nonfiction books that could use a good dissection, like Rich Dad, Poor Dad and The Secret. Well-researched and super funny and interesting. Love it. I've been listening to this as well. The episode on Freakonomics made me cringe at myself for thinking so highly of the book when it came out. The Rich Dad Poor Dad episode was super good. I was dying laughing at some of the examples they pulled from the book, such as make more money by joining an MLM. Stuff you should know. No such thing as a fish, funny while being somewhat educational. Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend is genuinely laugh out loud funny and often super insightful. I started out only listening to the celebrities that interested me, but then realized that Conan is such a great interviewer, he can make almost anyone interesting, so I went back and listened to them all. This is my top comedy podcast, I can't find anything that even compares. You need to listen to the first Timothy Oliphant one and the first Jeff Goldblum. Absolutely incredible. Darknet Diaries. Cybersecurity guy here. Resider gets a lot of things right and cares about the community. Or is his name Jackery Sider? I love You're Wrong About. Yup. The episode about the rugby team stranded in the Andes had me feeling every emotion. What else is there to do when rescuers are finally on their way and a young man screams avalanche but spreads everyone with a fire extinguisher but to laugh and then cry a bit. The History of Rome, Mike Duncan. The rest is history, hardcore history. Just want to add Revolutions from Mike Duncan if you haven't gotten around to that one yet already. That dude is an incredible historian. 99% Invisible. Came here for this. I listen to a lot of podcasts and recommend based on the person except this. Everyone should listen to 99% Invisible. Partly just because Roman Mars has a great voice. Dear Hank John, hang out with John and Hank Green as they chat about random topics. Light-hearted, but can be quite eloquent at times. What's Her Name? History podcast on forgotten little-known female figures. 99% Invisible, deep dives into random topics. Some light-hearted, some serious, always eye-opening and thought-provoking. Explore a Story, podcast on museums, science and storytelling. The Dork Forest, guests talk about their passion hobby. The Atlas Obscura podcast on random places and the people that live there. Seconding 99% Invisible. Sawbones, a marital tour of misguided medicine. It's a semi-serious look at medical history, hosted by a doctor and her comedian husband. Glad one of the McElroy podcasts are at the top. Sawbones is so good. Knowledge fight. My dad wrote a porno. Really enlightening on the pots and pans industry. This is actually happening. Each episode is about an experience someone really had and is told in their own voice. For example, one episode is about how a woman survived an apartment fire, another is about a woman who hit and accidentally killed a person on the road. Definitely not an easy listen, but they are all important stories and experiences. The Dollop. No sleep till hippo. Mightn't I the gristle? Dungeons and Daddies. If you like trip comedy heavyweight, you're wrong about the Magnus Archives Ologies. Ologies is a ton of fun. As I imagine many listeners do, I really like the host Ali Ward. She's delightfully nerdy, open, honest, and kind. The pod itself is well structured with useful and interesting asides where Ali adds info among parts of the interview. It's a great way to be entertained while learning about somebody's cool sciencey job. I've been listening to Ologies for a few years now, and it's one of the best podcasts emo for any scientifically inclined individual. I also like how she interviews not just the best of the best for each field but usually some mostly normal scientist within a certain ology. Such as the rocks episode or trees episode, where it's just a couple of friendly chill rock and tree enthusiasts. It's also fairly accessible for all audiences and doesn't go too deep or specific in any one field such that it can't be understood if you know nothing about it to begin. I think it's an excellent example of how science communication should be done. I am obsessed with This Podcast Will Kill You. If you like the biology and history of diseases and illnesses, this is it. The presenters are awesome. This American Life. The Moth. I can't believe This American Life is this low. I have been listening to Ira Glass for over a decade now. Is it really not that popular? Hello, I'm Ira Glass. Thank you for being a sustaining member. Everyone has a story, and your phone's story is that it's ringing. Distractible. But are you listening hard enough? Off Menu with Ed Gamble and James Acaster. Celebrities get to pick their dream meal. The Anthropocene Reviewed. Very different to the others in this list and worth a listen. It's in theory about reviewing certain parts of the human world, but think deeply personal and well-crafted auditory essays framed around those things written by a good author rather than a pure fact dump. Has space not to take itself too seriously at points as well. Be aware though, it gets deeply nihilistic and depressing at points when you wouldn't expect it. Mostly due to John Green's personal sense of nihilism and depression being expressed in his art. However, because of that, it's genuinely amazing. I've cried more than once at it. 60 songs that explain the 90s. It's more than 60, and got renewed. It explains the history behind a very diverse selection of songs from the decade. Normal Gossip is hilarious and the stories are all about low-stakes drama. Fun and stress-free. Squirrel Story is best. Huberman Lab. Ear Hustle. Stories about life in prison. Likeable hosts. Lions Led by Donkeys. Hilarious war history. I've recently been super into Swindled. It's a narrative-based podcast in which the host describes cases of white-collar crime and other types of con artistry. Absolutely worth listening to. Old Gods of Appalachia is a good radio drama. The way narrator speaks, you can feel the trees grow around you. I have not seen Doughboys or Blank Check mentioned. Doughboys, chain restaurants reviewed by two very funny people. Has a lot of good celebrity guests. Blank Check, they cover a director's filmography from beginning to end. Very insightful without being serious. Funnily enough, both podcasts feature a host who loves trains. This is a podcast about filmographies. Directors who have massive success early on in their careers and are given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion project they like. Sometimes those checks clear and sometimes they bounce, baby. Fall of Civilizations, wonderful and immersive storytelling about the history of a series of doomed civilization from large to small. The Rapa Nui, Easter Island, one is hyperbolically good. Cautionary tales, stories and lessons from real-life tragedies and near misses. Very often excellent. Edit, oh shit, a new episode just dropped in my phone as I was typing this. That is such a fun bit of serendipity. Ologies. Really great science podcast. Your Mom's House. I'm a big comedy podcast guy. If you want to listen to predominantly true crime with some occasional biographies thrown in, I'd highly recommend Timesuck. Especially if you have a dark sense of humor. As far as pure comedy, I've been addicted to The Yard lately. It's the only podcast I've ever spent money on their Patreon for. It's so damn funny.